What's up? What's up on this Thursday night?
Peace. What's happening, everybody?
How's everybody doing? Welcome to Local Musicians XP. And I am your host, Chris Burroughs. With me on this new endeavor called Deep Vinyl is the one, the only astute audiophile, sonic, vinyl, mercenary, expert, the one, the only Lamar Clay. We are going to discuss on this show all things vinyl, whether you are trying to start a record collection, if you want to get into it, if you have one, how to maintain it, certain things that you might be looking for. This is the man to talk to. He knows all the spots, all the places to dig, not only here, but in a whole bunch of other cities as well. So, what we're going to try to do is really develop a new show here on Local Musicians XP. We have our main show with my partner and co-host, the great Tyrone Jackson, who may be joining us tonight. He had a gig earlier, but he may be popping in. He just got a new organ, so I don't know how much we're gonna really see of him. Lately, he might be incognito for a while, but he might pop in and we talk about some of the record stores where he's from in New Orleans, and that's what we really want to try to do is make what we do interactive. We want people to comment, to share the show. If you are on YouTube, subscribe, or if you are not on YouTube, please subscribe to our YouTube channel. We have more shows, more content coming, and we want to make this a broad musical education hotspot where we talk about the things of the past. We, both Tyrone and I are both musical educators and professional musicians, so we talk a lot about that. A lot of our focus is on students, and if you want to become a student of vinyl, this is the teacher that you guys need to catch up with, talk to. You can hit him at L DeBooker on Instagram. Follow him. You can friend him on Facebook, and because the thing about albums is that's how we all learned how to play music. Lamar's not necessarily a musician, but what I've come across, well, okay, a professional musician, I should say.
Yeah, I stopped.
But so he has a master's in
elementary
ed. Right, and he's actually a bona fide educational teacher, and but you know just speaking, he has a PhD in music literacy, which most audiophiles have. Most of my history, the things that I learned were from my oldest sister about music. I mean, the stuff that I learned between my ages 3 and 10 have served me well all the way up to, I'm not going to tell you how old I am, but it's a long way from that. So, but I always go back to, records, listening to those albums, learning about the musicians. And it was just a different time because that was our social media. Kids now have, you know, random forms of incredible information. But for us, that was the only way that we could get anything about the musicians that we loved other than magazines. Now, when the magazines hit, that was a different story. We're going to maybe do a little thing on all the great music magazines of the past. But anyway, I'm going to start rambling. I'm going to let Lamar talk a little bit and give you a little bit of his story, what he's been up to, and what he wants to bring to this channel.
Peace, everybody. Great to be on the second episode of this show. We had a great time last week with our first episode. Went about 2 hours, but it feels like 15 minutes when you're talking good music.
That's right.
I look forward to building more on that and just the connecting of music. That's what my goal is that music is in a bunch of islands. There's actually some strong connections, some unexpected connections that you will see when you read the liner notes, and just talking about our early exposures. I had an older brother that was 7 years older than me, so my first taste of current music came through his taste. He graduated in '83, so I got all the Electric Funk, Johnson Crew, Pac Jam, Space Cowboy, etc. But as I got my own record player, my little Fisher Price, then I got the suitcase record player.
Not the Fisher Price, bro.
Yeah,
Not the Fisher Price. The white one. The white one with the orange.
Yes.
The orange arm.
Yes, sir. I started that early, and then getting my little suitcase record player with the speaker in the front, and starting to acquire, 45s was my path. At first, getting all my cousins old 45s, and then finally around the time hip hop became a thing on wax, getting things like the breaks, buying that for myself, even buying Rapture by Blondie. Those are a couple of ones that I bought with my own money. And
Yes.
so that was my musical education. As it evolved, your friendships, your interactions, you deepen your musical taste based on what your friends are playing, older relatives, etc. So, I've always taken in, influences from especially older relatives and, friends and peers and things like that. So, and as it evolved, then you get deeper into it, then you realize you left some of the people that inspired you a little bit behind because, especially when you're younger, you're going deeper in a different direction. You're not always absorbed by your influences. You start to get your own type of niche. And mine was horns and drums. And now it's deepening in the funny thing, I never really used to pay attention to bass lines. Now I'm dissecting bass lines out of everything, and with technology now, with the stem separation and stuff, you can really hear some of those things and not need the multi-track and original, to be able to at least solo out some of that stuff. So it's been an exciting journey of going right back through these same records and listening to them with a different perspective, lowering the vocals or bringing the vocals up, panning, so.
Right. Yeah. I highly suggest anyone who, wants to delve into this world is to definitely check out Questlove stuff, because he talks a lot about vinyl, the records. He does, he DJs as well. I saw him, man, this had to be 90. I don't know. It was the Roots had been around for a little bit. I can't remember if Voodoo had been out or not, but anyway, he was doing a DJ set at a place called MJQ.
Yes.
And MJQ was like headquarters for, DJ culture, house music. Actually, I played there with a couple of different people over the years when it was open, but I got to check him out just on the DJ front, man. And he just came down there and did a little, DJ set and spinning his favorite records. But his podcast is amazing. Right. And he's a big fan. Of course, he has access to everything now, which is beautiful, because for a cat like that, because, he's getting, just as you mentioned, man, the stems from sessions and checking, and talking a lot about, those, he'll get, whatever from the, trying to name, like, so, okay, let's just say, since he played with D'Angelo, he might get the stems from Voodoo or from Black Messiah or whatever. And then talk a little bit about that. But he's more interested in getting stuff like, the historic stuff, Stevie, Average White Band, whatever he can get his hands on. And
no telling what's laying around Electric Lady. He recorded, he recorded Voodoo and Electric Lady in New York.
Exactly.
Yeah, so
exactly.
No telling what tapes were lying around there that, man, I lose
right. Exactly, man.
Yeah,
exactly.
My boy Carl is chiming in. In fact, the last time I went to MJQ, he was in town because he lived here for a while, but we met in Jacksonville But yeah, we all had a great time that day. And Dave Soul was spinning that night. He was filling in for somebody, the main DJ that was out of town.
Okay.
And crazy stuff too. I think I got some video footage of that day. Yeah.
Okay. So man, just to sort of, we want to actually welcome everybody in. We really didn't get a chance to. I was just running my mouth at telling everybody what was going on, but thank you all for coming in, hanging out with us. We got some new people coming in, which is what we want to try to do, is get some new people, man, form those relationships, just like Lamar was talking about. We're all music lovers, and the history of music is something that is super, super important to us. And we want to share that with, of course, each other, our stories. Lamar and I were talking a little bit today. He's always telling me something I don't know, and every now and then I'll catch him on something, So
it's a mutual exchange. Come on.
So it is an exchange, and that's what we want in the comments, talking about, if you guys talk amongst yourselves, talking about what record y'all are listening to, what you're looking for, because you never know who's got what. You never know who knows where to get something. And it's just a beautiful exchange of knowledge and love, and also just wisdom. So feel free to talk amongst yourselves and friend each other up, man, and get that whole thing going. So tonight we have two things on the docket. We are going to talk about a little bit about we lost a great ambassador, and a major cog in the music industry. This guy was connected to so many things. Lamar and I, we were talking about some stuff, man, and it's just like, it's crazy to see and to kind of look back and to delve into this cat's career and look at all the different things that he was a part of. And that's the late, great David Sanborn, who just passed away a couple of days ago. We talked a little bit about his legacy on the Tuesday show with Tyrone. But what we're going to talk about tonight is his legacy as a sideman is equally as incredible as his legacy as a solo artist. Right. So we're going to talk a little bit about that. Lamar's got some albums queued up. We may talk a little bit about some of the early records that he did, which are not as popular as, his whole sort of rise to fame was really in the 80s. And when Marcus Miller, Omar Hakim, Ricky Peterson, those cats, once he really, Marcus Miller was really, I think, the main sort of thread that sort of catapulted. And I was listening to a lot of that stuff in the mid to late 80s as I was sort of getting my excursion into jazz and checking that stuff out. So the album with Bob James, his early, those As We Speak was one of the first albums that a friend of mine, actually a girl that I was dating in LA, introduced me to and hit me to. So, but what we want to do is talk to about his work as a sideman, and which I guess what we were sort of doing research on him, because we came to the same conclusion, and that was his first sort of exposure was in the Butterfield Blues Band. And I recently I've been watching a lot of Midnight Special episodes on YouTube, and there was one, Paul Butter, they were on there I think a few different times, but the one episode that I was checking out, I heard that sax, and I couldn't see who it was, but I knew who it was. I knew it was Sanborn, man. I knew it was Sanborn. He has, I would say, him, Coltrane. There's
Maceo.
only a few. Maceo. There's certain guys that all it takes is one note, and you know exactly who it is. So I heard that note, and I'm looking for him. I'm like, I know where's Sam. I hear Sanborn, and then you see him just as a young cat, man, just playing with the Butterfield Blues Band, man. So talk a little bit about that, dude. And
okay.
yeah,
Got that queued up. So the first sessions that I know of, as far as his as a session man, actually came as early as 1967, and they were with Paul Butterfield and the Butterfield Blues Band. So this is the first album that he showed up on.
wow.
And this one is called The Resurrection of Pig Boy Crabshaw.
Man.
And the funny thing is, on this album, it came out in 67 on Elektra, and he's listed as David Sanborn with the E at the end. And I'm not sure that he had that in his birth name. But this is the group. Couldn't pick him out of this group, but he is listed as one of the core members.
Yeah, I don't see him.
This is a rock / blues influenced band. Actually has some members that he actually collaborated with several times and are connected to in several different ways. More specifically, Gene with Dinwiddie on tenor saxophone. So of course, Sanborn played alto, and what's his name? Dinwiddie played tenor. He has a lot of situations where there's somebody that mainly played tenor, where he would be the alto saxophonist. But actually, in these early years, on this first album, he only played alto. But then the next year, in '68, came this album.
Oh, and wow.
He's listed, and we have Edwin Bishop as part of the group on the guitar. Gene Dinwiddie also. Now, Dinwiddie was playing tenor saxophone, flute. Sanborn is listed here with soprano, alto, and baritone saxes. So that's a rare section.
Baritone?
Yes.
Have never seen him listed for baritone before.
Similar to Maceo Parker. Now, if you look at some of the early sessions of James Brown, Maceo he's on baritone. Now, once that trademark sound came in, he became the go-to man. Of course, he transitioned to his alto. So I say there's a lot of parallels as far as Sanborn and Maceo, especially the fact that you can immediately identify their tones. Now, a lot of these members had solo albums he actually showed up on. Now, this is not going to be an exhaustive list. He was in about 900 sessions. So I'm not going to even touch anywhere.
Nah, we can't cover everything, but so I went through, I just listed a few of the things, kind of some of the main things that he's credited for. So so for those of you on Spotify, we're just going to kind of list some of the artists that Sanborn was a part of. If you are watching on YouTube, you can see the pop-up here. But we got Butterfield Blues Band, Stevie Wonder, which is Talking Book. He's on
Tuesday Heartbreak. Big song.
David Bowie, of course. He's on Young Americans record. Jaco Pastorius. He is on there along with his brothers from another mother, the Brecker brothers.
Right.
Okay, so that's the Young Americans. That album is very near and dear to my heart. It's one of the first records that I remember listening to as a kid, and my sister playing that album. Great album, Andy Newmark. Yeah, and Luther Vandross. I mean, he had Andy Newmark is on drums on that. That's one of my favorite albums. Okay, so then he's listed also with Toto. He's on the Toto album Fahrenheit. Okay, so he's on like maybe 3 cuts on that. He's on he played with Joe Beck. You're going to talk a little bit more about that because you got some really cool stuff to talk about that. Right. Steely Dan is the interesting one because we did a little listen through today. Mm-hmm. He's credited on Time Out of Mind off of Gaucho. So, and I was like, I know Gaucho pretty well. Yeah. And I was like, man, I don't remember a sax solo, but Lamar's like, I think there's one maybe like in the verse or so I did just a little kind of run through of most of the track. I couldn't find a solo, but there are background horn parts. And usually with Sanborn, as I've found, it's easy to even pick him out of if he's playing with other horn, because his sound is so distinctive. But that one I couldn't quite hear. So that's an interesting one. Right. Another one that's funny, man, is everybody's seen the Lethal Weapon movies. Okay. Yeah. So when you hear that sax in Lethal Weapon, that's David Sanborn, y'all. That's David Sanborn.
That's new to me.
Yes. The Lethal Weapon soundtracks. That is David Sanborn on that. And then a few others is James Taylor, Cat Stevens, which you were talking. Were you talking? We were talking a little bit about that the other day.
Well, I was talking about another album, Cat Stevens, but he
okay.
He was on the Numbers album. There was an album called Numbers by Cat Stevens.
Okay. And then Donny Hathaway and also the Eagles. So you're seeing everything, basically.
Now I want to say, if I'm doing the process of elimination with Donny Hathaway, I believe he was on You Were Meant for Me, which came out on his Best of Donny Hathaway. There's a very pronounced solo on there, because I saw that credit also. And that one was new to me, because You Were Meant to Me was not on one of his studio albums. It was a song that he had recorded. And then we come to find out Donny Hathaway had several songs that were recorded in some type of form. And they finally released them probably within the last 15 years. It's a lot that they released. And even the raw vocals with no orchestration sound incredible. But You Were Meant for Me was one of those songs that actually came out on his first greatest hits, the red one with the silhouette of him with his trademark hat on.
Yeah, so that was never a part of a studio record.
That's correct. So that's why I'm assuming that's the one that he was on, because of the sax solo on there, and the fact that he doesn't appear on the credits, to my knowledge, of his 3 studio albums, self-titled, I Hear Voices, and an extension Man. But with Donny Hathaway, it's an interesting story as you dive in deep. His mental health issues really kept him away from the studio. After about 73, that's when his recording started to dip. And in fact, he did some sessions. He did some stuff with, and we're not going to, this is a caveat. We're going to go get back to Sanborn.
Sure.
He did some sessions. He did some arrangements for a lot of artists like Cold Blood, etc. But it was Roberta Flack's request to get him back in the studio that really ignited his creative flame with The Closer I Get to You, and then, unfortunately, the last sessions that he did back together and You Are My Heaven, literally recorded the day before he passed away. And that's why Back Together Again is a 9-minute song, but it has a lot of repeat verses on it. They just went in and then they made a large instrumental part to, accentuate it, because it wasn't a completed song before he passed away.
Man, incredible.
Oh, and let me shout out some of my Facebook friends and
please do.
Desiree, James, my boy John in Jacksonville, Rhett, Brandy, co-worker, Taylor, my co-worker. They got some questions going on. My cousin, Lisa, Frank Grimm. I got DJ Terrell, Steven. We used to play sax together. We played our second year playing band. We played together. Carlos, my boy Shock. So I just want to give them shout outs, and I'm going to address some of the questions they have.
Yeah, man. If you got a question, you got a question right now that we can kind of get into real quick.
Well, James Welsh said you also go back and rediscover artists who first influenced you. So it's just a general statement, I guess, about what we were talking earlier. But
I saw that. Let me see, where is that? I'm gonna pop that up right quick.
And Jonathan, that's one of my friends. It's one of the people you meet in adulthood. Then it's like you immediately become brothers, because it's a story I won't tell on here, but we immediately knew we were going to be brothers, and 20 plus years strong,
Right.
So we have different levels of musical conversations as well.
Right. Right. Yeah. So just to shout that out one more time. So James Welsh, thank you for joining us tonight, hanging out with us, man. We're just talking about vinyl albums in general. You said you always go back and rediscover artists who first influenced you. So I 100% agree with that, man.
And then we were talking about the theme of, his relationship with the Brecker brothers, and we talked about him being like a third Brecker brother.
Third
So I
Brecker
have a
brother.
couple of albums that, of course, this is the self-titled album. He's listed on there.
Classic.
There's a couple of songs on here. Let me check, make sure this is the one.
That's a classic right there, man.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And the Brecker brothers are Randy on trumpets and the late, great Michael, I'm sorry, on saxophone, tenor saxophone. So a lot
legends.
Of sessions, even not non-Brecker brother sessions where Michael was playing tenor, you'd often see David Sanborn playing alto. There's going to be some albums that I'm going to go over where you're going to see that combination. You're going to see combinations with people that he was in the Butterfield Blues Band with on some different sessions. And, eventually I'm going to tie in a lot of different stuff that was amazing for me just to discover. And this album also, he actually has a few writing credits on here. He has the song Grease Piece, which he co-wrote with Steve Kahn and the Breckers. I got a Steve Kahn record that I'm going to profile too. And he has a song, actually, he's a co-writer with Steve Kahn, the Breckers, and Luther Vandross called Keep It Steady, Brecker Bump. Luther Vandross is another deep dive that.
Who's all on that record right there? The back to back Brecker Brothers album, back to back.
We have the normal crew. We have, of course, the Breckers, Sanborn, Don Grolnick.
Yep.
Steve Kahn. He was on the keyboard. Steve Kahn.
Is that okay?
Steve Kahn.
Erskine
on guitar.
Who's on? Is Erskine on that? Gad
is on. He's a featured vocalist. A featured drummer on Night Flight and Wasted Time. Ralph McDonald is on percussion.
Okay.
The main drummer is Christopher Parker, but on electric bass and some lead vocals, Will Lee.
Of course, the New York crew. Wow.
And this is the inside liner notes. They're the Breckers to the far left. I guess everything's backwards on the internet. You got Will Lee sitting next to them. Yeah. And I believe that young man right there is a young
That's him.
man.
Check him out. That's him.
Yeah. And then Steve Kahn is next to him.
Yeah.
Who play guitar. Incredible albums. Of course, there are a lot more incredible Brecker Brothers albums. He's probably on a few other ones, but I just wanted to just make sure I mentioned the Brecker Brothers because they're a big part of his story. Like I said, I consider him like a third Brecker brother because he's the third hornman, and they used him so prominently. So those are good albums. And since I mentioned Steve Kahn, he recorded with Steve Kahn on several albums, and Steve Kahn recorded on Columbia, and Tappan Zee, Bob James's label. On this album, he's featured prominently, but there is a version of the OJ's Darling, Darling Baby, Sweet Tender Love. Incredible solo by both Kahn and Sanborn. This was a type of record, going back to record stores, you would see quite often in a great condition for $1. And this one,
wow.
It has the inner write-up in here.
Yeah.
Still looks very good. So there's still some places you can find some good. Now, I've had this for years, but you dig long enough, you dig hard enough, you're going to find some quality records still for $1 and even less.
Unbelievable. So we had that same the comment from Carlos Arturo, who mentioned the Steve Kahn album, Darling, Darling Baby on it.
Right.
Yes. Tightrope. So yeah, man.
He was on quite a few of Steve Kahn's records, and they did a lot of studio sessions together, including the Brecker.
Yeah, man. So talk about the Joe Beck. Yeah. Talk about that. The Joe Beck album.
So I don't own the vinyl of the Joe Beck album. I have it on CD, and the CD has an alternate cover, which it has a silhouette of a nude woman. So I usually wouldn't post something like that. I don't want to get any type of strikes because of the different formats that we're going to be on. But on that album, this is an interesting tidbit.
What's the name of the record? What's the name of the record?
It's just called Beck.
Okay.
Beck. And it's on either Kudu or CTI. Great labels, sister labels out of Inglewood Cliffs, New Jersey, not too far from where I was born. And I discovered this album or this CD in the 90s. And there's a version of a song called Cafe Black Rose. So Cafe Black Rose was originally done by a guy that was a member of the Last Poets, but he went under an alias and created a project called Hustlers Convention. His name is his alias was Lightning Rod. This guy did some stuff with Hendrix. Of course, he was one of the classic members of the Last Poets, but the album Hustlers Convention is basically talking about a guy that just got out of jail. He got his threads back together. He's getting back on the streets, getting his money back up. He has a sidekick named Spoon. But Cafe Black Rose is actually like this players club that they went into, and it's a real mellow cut. So David Sanborn plays prominently on that song. Okay. Now, why did I mention the actual album itself? I'm not going to get off topic. I mentioned one of the members of the Butterfield Blues Band, the tenor saxophone, Gene Dinwiddie. He actually played on those sessions, of the original sessions of the Lightning Rod album, Hustlers Convention, with a group that he was in called Full Moon. And full circle, he was on this album. Sanborn was on this album on a song called The Visitor. So before he recorded with this group Full Moon, although he had recorded with several of the members because they come from different bands, he did that cover of Cafe Black Rose. And then a few years later, this Warner Brothers album showed up, and he actually played with one of the players who probably played a prominent part on the original Cafe Black Rose from the Lightning Rod album. So that
is this the original cover that you were talking about?
No. This is actually a Full Moon album.
Right. No, I was going back to. I was talking about the. I'm sorry. I was going back to the Joe Beck record.
Okay. Oh yes, that's the original cover. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Not a hard record to find. It's just for some reason I haven't picked it up yet. And Joe Beck is a guitar player.
Yes.
Not to be confused with Jeff Beck.
That's right, man. We got to go there too, though, at some point.
Oh yes.
Woo!
It's a couple rabbit holes I can go with his sessions, his covers, his influence. Oh man.
The Up records. Come on, we already talked. Yeah. All right, hold on. Let's get that topic though. Here we go. Here we go. So yeah. So that's the Joe Beck record, the original cover for. You said the CD version though is different.
CD version has the same tracks on it. I believe there's a bonus track because in the 90s when they were putting out a lot of the CTI albums on CD, they would put like a bonus track from the sessions. And
right.
The CD cover has like it's a new woman's, so she's not completely new, but it's risque enough to where we don't want to get a strike.
As well, I mean, as a lot of those, I mean, it was just art though, man. I mean,
yeah.
Especially I mean, we're gonna do a session on album covers, probably do a couple of sessions on that, and just it'd be great to know also the photographers, the art, whoever's doing the art direction, all those kinds of things. My wife is a photographer, so she would love to hear about some of these classic album covers, man, and who shot those and all that kind of stuff. So we'll talk about that. So yeah, man. So I think, that's a nice little introduction into David Sanborn's solo, or his side, man. I mean, and there's a bunch of other people. And
another prominent one that I don't have on vinyl, I have it on CD as well. I found a copy of it, but it was so beat up I was not going to buy it. He did a remake. Well, an artist named Joe Bataan. He's
that's right. Yeah.
On an album called Afro Filipino. So he was African American and Filipino. One parent was African American, one was Filipino. Now, I heard he wasn't raised speaking Spanish, but because he hung out in Spanish Harlem, he was actually in a gang, went to prison, came back out, reformed his life, didn't get the commercial success I believe he deserves, but he's still here. I believe he's still performing in his 80s. He's put out albums in the 2000s, but he has an album, which is my favorite album by him, called Afro Filipino. It was on Sal Soul Records. He did a cover of the classic Gil Scott-Heron, The Bottom. He, of course, it's titled in Spanish language. It was an instrumental, so Joe Bataan mainly just probably did the arrangements, but the soloing is prominently David Sanborn, and you hear that classic David Sanborn sound, so it's in place. Although Joe Bataan, that's the only song that Joe Bataan is not singing on it. He's known to be a vocalist, but he's also a producer and arranger. So it was cool that he put that song on that album because it's a groove. Yeah.
And what year is this? This is
75.
75. So he's really, man, the amount of stuff that he just did in between 72. When's his first solo record? Because it'd be interesting to know obviously he was just playing with everybody, got connected and got a deal.
So he did sign with Warner Brothers. He released his first album and also in 1975.
Okay. 75. Okay.
All right. It's called Taking Off.
Okay.
Some funky stuff on here. You got Dave Matthews composing and arranging on a lot of the songs. Some of the sidemen. You had a string section there. It's recorded in New York at A&R Studios. You have the Brecker Brothers.
Of course.
Tenor and trumpet. You have Howard Johnson on baritone sax and tuba. You have Tom Malone on trombone. Steve Kahn is on guitar. Buzzy.
That's the cat. Buzz Featon, man. Buzzy Featon.
Okay. He was also he's one of the main members of Full Moon. So
he was in the Butterfield Blues Band when he was like 15.
Exactly. Yes.
Buzz Featon, for those that don't know, Buzz Featon is one of the genius guitar players of all time. He plays the guitar solo on Stevie Wonder's Superwoman. If you want to, yes.
And that's one of the only outside credits on that whole album, because Stevie Wonder, Music in My Mind, he literally created that album.
That's Buzz Featon, man. That is Buzz. That's Buzzy Featon, dude. He was a beast. Absolute beast. Who else is on that record?
Joe Beck, who we just talked about. Don Grolnick, who was just on the
Grolnick, right? Mm-hmm.
And then he's on Fender Rhodes. Will Lee from the Brecker Brothers. Chris Parker on drums. I believe that he was on.
He was on that last record.
Yeah, so a lot of the Brecker Brothers members were on here. Rick, what's the last name? Murado on drums.
He's right.
On Butterfat and some of the funkier songs. Butterfat and Dunk Ankles. And then you have Ralph McDonald on congas, bongos, and his production.
Man, I mean, all of these cats, it's the same thing. It's just relationships. You can see that all these guys knew each other, played together, and they're gonna play on each other's stuff. Right. Man, that's how it works. When people, it always, trips me out when people talk about it's a clique. Oh, that's a clique. You can't get it. Oh, that's a clique. Blah, blah, blah. Well, it's not. It's a relationships, man. This is who we know. You can't just be imported into a situation where nobody knows you. And a lot of these situations that people want to call cliques, these guys, we have relationships, man, 10, 20, 30 years of that. And that means that the most important thing is there, and that is trust. It has nothing to do with not wanting to let anybody in or not wanting to, be open to that's not how the real world works. It doesn't work like that in business. It doesn't work like that in the arts. It's like you have to, build relationships, just be around sometimes. Don't be trying to, we talk about this on our other show a lot, is build relationships with people, show respect, hang out, be around. And if somebody needs you to do something, they'll ask you,
Right.
but you can't try to force your way into stuff. I mean, that's just how the real world works. So, so that's cool, man, to see all of those musicians sort of, they had their thing. I mean, there's a New York. It's all New York cats,
And with genres like jazz, a lot of it was just let's just create and see what sticks. And in the 70s, of course, they got more commercial and intentional, and so they, the new generations, they came in with that same MO. Let's just record and let's see what sticks. And no telling how many of these sessions actually overlap. You're not necessarily just going in to record this album. You might have been recording some stuff for some other side projects, and then said this song will fit more on your project than my project.
There's so many stories, man, of not only things like that, but just being in
Stuff is dope.
A studio and somebody's recording in studio A, somebody's recording in B, somebody's recording in C. You hanging out, you did your part there, but hey, man, can you come and do this part for me right quick? I need some backgrounds on this. I need some guitar on this. I mean, that's how all of that stuff kind of works. But I love this comment here. Our good friend Mark Podhorzer, New York Knicks crybaby is what we like to call him. He says Christopher Parker and Steve Gadd were in Stuff playing together too. Monster Drum. Yeah, man, Stuff. That's another.
Stuff was the stuff, man.
I know you. So man, this is so much fun, man. This is gonna be a cool rabbit hole to go down with all this stuff.
I was thinking about some examples. I remember when Miles had that period where he had stopped recording around 75, and then he didn't resume until 81. They had so many canned sessions. They were putting out double albums during that time. Right. And there was one of those type of sessions that was a compilation of different years called Directions. And I think it is the actual song. Directions is a 2-part song. Well, part 1 has its players, but for part 2, George Benson just walked in and started playing the guitar. So he's just on part 2, and I don't think they recorded much else other than that one song. So it just so happened that George Benson, and this was pre-Warner Brothers George Benson, this is when he was still probably on CTI or A&M or something like that, where he just was a hungry young jazz musician that had a nice little voice too. But he came in and played his trademark guitar. And that's about all you heard about from a collaboration between Miles Davis and George Benson. And then look at the directions both of them went, So
right.
Just talking about just being there, being in the moment. Sometimes you have to be a humble servant. It's a humble side.
Right.
You become the master lead man. Maurice White, perfect example.
Right.
Maurice White deserves all the success he obtained because he stood in the background for Summertime by Billy Stewart, Rescue Me by Fontella Bass, Ramsey Lewis for years. And then How the World Works is that once Earth, Wind, and Fire blew up, then he got to do a favor back to Ramsey Lewis and produce the biggest song by Ramsey. Well, one of the biggest songs, definitely
Sun Goddess, Sun
Goddess. So just talking about building relationships. You never know that young cat that you see on the harmonica might end up being Stevie Wonder. So
that's right, man. That's beautiful. That's right. So let's wrap up the Sanborn version of this. We just really.
Let me give a couple of shout outs. Let me give a couple because
I
don't have too many left. I started to pull out.
Okay. Sounds good. Okay.
All right.
Okay.
Speaking of CTI, masterful arranger. He's seen in a lot of credits. Klaus Augerman.
Man, I was just go ahead and I got something to say about that.
This is an amazing album. One of my friend Bus Credits actually hit me too. There's a 3-part suite called Time Past Autumn. And David Sanborn has an amazing solo on that just the part 3. Also supporting him on that song, Joe Sample on electric piano solo, and Michael Burroughs.
Wow.
This is an amazing album.
So tell people that can't see that, if you're listening on Spotify, tell the artist and the name of that record again, Lamar.
It is Klaus Ogerman, and the album is called Gates of Dreams. As you see, there's a $1 price tag on there. This is not an expensive album. You don't see it because usually people who know about it, they get it. It's on Warner Brothers Records. This is a great album by a great arranger with some great music. You got Joe Sample on here.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, you have a lot of live orchestration. You have a lot. You got Chino Valdez on congas on here. I didn't notice that. It came out in '76. Great album that David Sanborn was on. He actually was on Mike Murphy, the Vocal Leads legend.
Oh, oh man.
Yeah, this
Mark Murphy,
on the Red
man.
Clay by Naima, the Coltrane song, Body and Soul was on here. Maiden Voyage, Herbie Hancock, and Cantaloupe Island is on here. And, the Breckers are on here along with Dave Matthews as the arranger. And you have, of course, David Sanborn playing more of an ensemble role, not really soloing. And I have to shout this one out.
I know it's coming.
I
thought it was something different. Oh, I thought it was something different. I thought you were gonna pull the Todd album out, but go ahead.
He has a song here called "The Eye of the Storm" that David Sanborn plays a solo on. But this album, I know for the verse, it says something to the effect of I talked to my ex on the back of my checks, talking about his alimony payments and things like that. Michael Franks was just quirky with those type of lyrics. And he's on a song called Antonio's Song on here. That was a big song for Michael Franks. He's actually on a few Michael Franks albums too. The Rascals. He's on a song called Humming Song. Now, the Rascals, they did Good Luck.
Rascals they were bad, dude.
The Young Rascals
was bad, man.
Which was covered by so many people, but there was a point where they started to switch, and they had major jazz artists on their albums. I'm talking Joe Henderson. I'm talking Alice Coltrane. And on this album, they have a funky song called Humming Song that has a nice solo by Sanborn.
Man,
great group.
Wow.
And a group that you can find a lot of their records in the dollar store. He was on a lot of Bob James sessions, of course.
Touchdown.
Yes. He's on the title cut of this one. And let me just wind it up. He appears on a B.B. King album. This is the pro version, so I got this as an import.
Let me see that cover, dude. Look at that cover, man.
He's laid out on the beach. I'm sorry, it has the original. It has the original plastic on it, so the glare. Yeah, I got this.
I don't think I've ever seen that record.
I got this from a friend's collection, who happened to have somebody that was collecting a lot of records while they were probably in the military, because a lot of the records I got from were imports. And
that was B.B. King. Guess Who?
Guess Who? 72 on ABC. And I'll conclude it with these two albums. Gil Evans. Sketches of Spain, Gil Evans.
Man, wow.
He was on these two albums. This is a complete cover album of Jimi Hendrix. So imagine going from Sketches of Spain to Jimi Hendrix. That's what Gil Evans did. Now, on this album, he appears on another Jimi Hendrix cover called Little Wing. Amazing. I just recently got this one. Amazing cover of Little Wing by Hendrix. But so, he just was in so many different type of sessions with so many different type of people. That's not an exhaustive list, but just, when we decide we're going to give a little tribute to Sanborn as a sideman, I just start researching in my own collection and pulling out some of the albums that he was featured on prominently.
It's a little bit of a lesson in, he had several things working for him. He had to be easy to work with. To be on that many records, that many recordings with that many different people means that he was there to serve the music and play for the songs. That's the first thing. The second thing is he has a completely unique, identifiable sound. You hear cats. I mean, there's alto players that we can go down the list. One that comes to mind that's more in the funk, kind of more the funk contemporary zone would be Candy Dulfer. Now she has a little bit of Sanborn. She reminds me a little bit of Sanborn, a little bit of Maceo. She has kind of a little bit of kind of both of those cats in her, but there's really nobody that can sound like Sanborn. If we get an expert horn player on here, maybe they can tell us why his sound was so unique and so different, man. But man, listen, we're gonna wrap up the Sanborn episode here, and just shout out to his incredible contribution. And this is a great comment here. Carlos Arturo, again, one of the most recognizable voices in all of music, no question. Dave endeared himself to so many people, and the stories, he's one of those guys, man, that you just hear great stories about.
Right. And you have a lot of those relationships. The show he had,
Night Music, man. I mean,
he was stretching out with Bootsy on there on one episode, and he had an episode where he allowed one of my favorite rappers of all time, definitely of that time, Lakim Shabazz, did his title cut from his first album, Pure Righteousness. So to see somebody like Lakim Shabazz on a jazz artist's show with turntables and dancers and things, just shows you how he wanted that show to be a welcoming place for all types of music. Because I came up in the hip hop generation that helped me evolve my musical taste because of sampling, replays, etc., or even records. And to see some of the artists that hip hoppers were looking up to, because they were doing it as a homage, to say, oh, that rap is crap. Boom, boom. James Brown was caught in it for a minute. A lot of them were like, and some of them still have that stance, but then some of them have a different stance to see. This is the contemporary music of the youth. And, some of when it started getting more commercially viable, it became beneficial to build those relationships when those artists said, well, I don't want to sample. I want you to play on my album. Because that happened. 45 King, who produced Lakim Shabazz, he would hire people like Maceo and Fred Wesley. In fact, I believe the song, The Power, it comes from a song that 45 King, who produced Lakim Shabazz, had an artist named Chill Rob G. Well, there was a beat that he made that had a prominent saxophone solo in it. But he would hire sometimes Maceo to just do some sessions. He would put an instrumental behind it. I don't know if Maceo was on that one, but it came from building those relationships as a producer and say, well, let me go up to New York. Let me go start talking to some of the real musicians that I like to see. And some of them are receptive to it. And people like Maceo, Fred Wesley, etc., were receptive to the hip hop generation.
Well, you brought up a good point, man, in terms of hip hop and the sampling.
Hey, Edith, Joya, man, a lot of people coming in.
Yeah, man.
Sam. Go ahead. Sorry.
No, that's cool. You're when you talk about hip hop and the sampling, what it did for you in terms of introducing you to all these different artists, these different musicians, you could call that like a gateway effect, and that's what Sanborn kind of was. He was like a gateway because, again, you see him on so much on so many things, and you start checking out, or the connections. Oh, Will Lee, who is that, man? Will Lee's playing on this record. Oh, okay. Well, let me see. Oh, man, let me go check out this cat because so and so played on, and Sanborn was just like that. He's like just a connective force to to all styles. When you have your own voice, man, that's what that leads to. So, all right, we're gonna go ahead and wrap that up with Sanborn. Right. And
enjoy that conversation.
Again, if you're listening on Spotify, give us a 5-star review, share this podcast if you're checking us out on YouTube. Subscribe to the channel. For those of you who are not subscribed to the Local Musicians XP, please go to YouTube, subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell so you know when we go live with stuff. We're going to live on Facebook for a little bit longer, but eventually we're going to only be on YouTube, and then the audios will go to whatever podcast format. We're going to try to get to all of them, but it takes a minute. Right now we are on Spotify, so you can check us out there.
What's happening, Black?
So man, let's wrap up that first segment, and then let's go ahead and get to the second one. Let's see here. So again, thank you everybody for hanging out with us tonight. This is our new show called Deep Vinyl. I have the master of vinyl ceremonies here with me.
Just a participant.
The great Lamar Clay, really audiophile extraordinaire. I've learned just in the short period of time that we've been putting this show together. I've already learned a ton of stuff, man. So y'all really want to, if you guys want to, again, get to the bottom of how to become a vinyl collector. If you already have a collection that you want to learn how to make it better, how to store, all of those things are coming. So he's going to hit everybody, share. This is what we do, is try to share information. It's just education. It's all just shared information. We're not trying to hoard anything, not trying to keep stuff from people. What our knowledge is your knowledge. So whatever we can share with you guys, tune into our show, Chop It Up Tuesdays on every Tuesday night. My trusty partner, co-host Tyrone Jackson, and I chop it up about all things in the professional music world, right? And so we're dealing with a lot of the stuff from the professional music world. So if you just want to learn about what it's like to be a working musician, if you want to hear stories, if you have young kids that are looking to become musicians and are looking for advice on certain things, hit us up. Come check out our show. It's every Tuesday night at 9 p.m. And this show, we're going to kind of float it a little bit, so you never know when we're going to be on. Our schedules are kind of back and forth right now. We'll lock in a time probably pretty soon. Hopefully for the summer, we might be able to lock a time in. But right now, you just got to subscribe and watch your notification bell to see when we're on. So,
and Chris is good at sending out an announcement at least a day ahead of time. So,
right.
Making sure if you follow me, you'll see that announcement come up.
Right.
Of course, some of my close friends, I just text them and say, I'm getting ready to go live.
That's
and I appreciate everybody showing love today. I mean, I got old co-workers like Edith on here. My old roommate, used to live next door to me. We have the same first and middle names with different last names. My boy Smoke, he just mentioned Chill Rob G. We literally in the dorm room jamming and stuff like that.
Okay.
Carol, old co-worker, Joya, longtime friend. I got Tasha, longtime friend and neighbor. A lot of great people showing up, and I appreciate y'all showing love. Because this is something I was real nervous about. But I'm glad I have.
Man, you are natural. You are a absolute
you help
natural.
Me along the way. I appreciate it.
Hey, man, like I said, I'm just producing it right now, man. Sooner or later, it's be the Lamar Clay show, brother. Lamar Clay. So
I received.
All right. Yes, sir. That's right, man. When people are ready, the door's open, man. The door's open. So, all right. So here's we're going to get to our topic of the evening. And this is something that,
shout out to James Ellison Jr. too.
Oh, is James in the chat? Okay.
Yeah, he's on my own chat.
Okay.
Yeah.
What's up, James? How you doing, man? So let's get to really kind of where it all begins, man. And that is in whatever hometown you live in or hometown you are from. What I really want to know is about where you're from, what cities you're from, and what we want to talk about is the local record stores. Okay, so wherever you're from, not necessarily, we know. I mean, obviously, if you're from Atlanta or whatever, we're gonna shout out the Atlanta ones too. But we really want to know the local record stores, especially when you were young. If you're anywhere near our age and you grew up on albums, you grew up on record. What record store did you go to? So I'll kind of start that off. I'm from Rockford, Illinois, and which is about 90 miles west of Chicago. And my father was a huge record fan, a music fan, and I had an older sister who had probably, back in those days, she had over 500 records. That was like, for those days in the early 70s, that was hardcore. So, and the whole record collection would take up the whole living room. They were just lined. They were on the ground. I could still see it to this day.
Yeah, I can remember those days. It was crates. They weren't
no crates.
Like
no crates. No crates, bro. No crates. Just on the ground.
Okay.
Lined up I'm talking all edges, the whole all walls of the living room is where the records were. And then of course the record player was in there. And that was where we would spend most of our time, was in the living room with, we had I can't remember if a television was in a different, if one of my sisters is in the chat, she can chime in on this, but I can't remember if the television was in a different room or was in the same room. But I remember that all those albums were in the living room, and she used to quiz me. So she would open up a record. She would say, okay, you're going to learn what label this band is on. You're going to learn who produced the record. You're going to learn all the musicians' names, blah, 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 blah. And then she would quiz. I would have to do study all the records and stuff. And then she would just pull one out randomly. Okay, tell me about this. And then I would have to tell her. So that was sort of like my first introduction to really musical education was through that. But the local record, there were several local record stores where I'm from, and I'm just going to shout out a few of the main ones. Okay, so one of the main ones that's still there, I'm talking about still there, going strong, is called Toad Hall. Now my dad used to go. They used to have a game room in the back. He would play chess, and they would play chess in the back. And then they would have all, the albums, whatever you're looking for, blah, 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 blah. It was a huge, and that place is still, I just bought my brother-in-law a gift certificate for his birthday to Toad Hall. His birthday was just this past Sunday, I believe. And I hooked him up with a gift certificate to Toad Hall. So there was Toad Hall. Then there was a place called Disc Records, which was in the mall. And that's when my sister worked at Disc Records, which turned into National Record Mart. And then when it was National Record Mart, I was in high school, and my best friend, who I just actually talked to today, Tremel Duncan, used to work at the National Record Mart. And, he used to give a few little hookups there, so I would get the new, whatever was new, I guess cassettes were really at that time were the things to kind of get. And then the last one was what we used to call the Black Record Store. And this was Ubiquity. This would be on the other side of town. This cat could get you anything. I mean, you would tell him what you're looking for. He had a little pad. He'd write it down. No communication, no phone call, no nothing. You come back in a week, it's sitting up on the shelf for you, man. And so many times, man, I still remember Mr. Crudup. That's who it was. I went to school with his son, with his nephews. Shout out to James Crudup if you out there. But there was a whole family of Crudups, and Mr. Crudup owned Ubiquity Records, and because a lot of the real soul stuff and the funk you couldn't really get in a regular. I mean, you could get what was popular, if they had it, but it was about what they could really sell. So, you know, back in those days, man, there was some underground stuff going on. But he could get, especially like when the Minneapolis sound hit with Prince, and there was all kind of stuff coming out from Minneapolis that record stores weren't carrying because they weren't real popular. So he could get all of that stuff. And there was always an interesting aroma coming from the back room that I was, you know,
April 20th.
Cats was just back there hanging out, man. So anyway, so tell us a little bit where you're from and what are your recollections of just your local record store.
All right. I was raised in Jacksonville, Florida, as they would call it, the infamous Duval. And starting up, we had a Gateway Mall that was in my neighborhood, not too far from where I lived. Could actually walk there. They had the record bar, I believe, at first. Then they opened a store. Record bar had locations in most malls. Then they opened a store called Cal's, which was an independent store. So Cal's is where some of my first cassettes purchases, etc. Dougie Fresh was my first album that I bought on cassette. Oh my God, with Nothing, All the Way to Heaven, etc.
Okay.
So Cal's was my weekly or sometimes twice a week rotation. That's where when I didn't eat lunch for a week, I will either ride my bike, walk, or borrow a car and go up to Cal's to get my weekly dose of something. Mainly cassettes during that time because I had boom boxes, etc. I never always had vinyl in the equation. Of course, with hip hop, 12 inches were a big thing, so you had to buy those as vinyl. They didn't have cassette singles, or CD singles in the 80s. So a lot of my early, when I started saving my money to buy stuff for contemporary music, was on cassette. Cal started to phase out about 1990. And then on the other side of the mall, which you can walk to, this was a kind of, they had an indoor portion with the arcade, Orange Julius, etc. But then they had the stores on the outside that you could walk along the strip. And then on the I believe, yes, they were all the way at the other end of the walking portion. There was a gentleman named Big Al. Big Al's records took over about 1990, 91. So this is when I started buying CDs. And when I was buying CDs, I was going in. Big Al's would have every last Isaac Hayes stack CD, the double CDs, etc. He would have all the Ohio players. He would have all the Parliaments. So it would be sometimes, I remember one time I got off, I used to work at UPS at the time. I got off from work, got over there so fast, it was still open. And I remember just buying all the Ohio players in one swoop, or at least all the ones he had. Because during the 90s, they were reissuing things in increments. So they weren't just putting everything out on CD. You may get the first 3 Ohio players albums on Mercury, then they'll put the next 3 out. Funkadelic was notorious for that. I had to wait for the Funkadelic albums that were on Westbound. And Warner Brothers was notorious for not putting stuff on CD. Your Bootsy Rubber Band, all Japanese imports. I saw the first Bootsy Rubber Band CD here at Lenox Mall in Atlanta. Didn't have the money to get it, and I was sick about it. And finally got them once I moved up the floor. But once I moved to Philly. But let me go back to Jacksonville. The longest standing record store that I know of, because it's still there, has always been there. His name is Jam Man. He's on the west side of town off of Emerson. I think that's Emerson. He's called DJ's Records. Amazingly, he has to have been in business over 50 years. Still looks young and vibrant. He sits in that store, sometimes with the fan on. It's an older building. You can see where years ago the roof collapsed and it was repaired.
Right.
Now, Jam Man is legendary, but I'm going to be 100. I got to be transparent. That would not be the first place I would go, because sometimes you'll see something that I'm not paying $40 for a Sade album.
Right.
But if you were looking for something, like that old school method, pre-internet, just write it down for me. I'll make sure if I don't have it in here, I'll make sure I get it in here. That's where I remember we had an AM station that was playing the oldies, and they would always play "I Choose You" by Willie Hutch and "Brothers Gonna Work It Out" from the Mac soundtrack. I need these songs, and this is where I wasn't. It was AM radio, so even if I recorded it off of radio, which I did many tapes.
Man, that used to be the move, dude.
Yeah, but AM, of course, the reception is not the ideal to play in the car, play at the house.
Right.
I need this on some format other than AM radio. When in jam bands, when the DJs, he had it. He has, because he's on the record store so long, one thing that's cool about his inventory, he didn't send records back to the record store for the most part. I mean, to the record labels. So you will see records that were promos. It's almost like you're opening a time capsule with it.
Right.
You see stuff like, wait a minute, how did he have all of these records from this label that only existed for 2 years at most? And he'll have all pristine in the sleeves, still sealed. It's like, how do you keep all this stuff? And I'm pretty sure people have offered many times just to buy out his inventory. Last time I told him, he was like, no time soon. He said, and this is a common theme with a lot of older record stores. He says, it's not the local residents that's keeping me in business. It's the people that come from places like Europe and Japan twice a year, and they will buy thousands of dollars worth of records, no questions asked. And talking about writing stuff down, this goes back to the old catalogs they would get, maybe like quarterly. A lot of imports that I got, like my Miles Davis from the 70s, a lot of that wasn't domestically available. So I have to order it from those big catalogs they would have in the store. It's like, yeah, they got that. My wholesaler has that. He has that.
Wow.
Give me 2 weeks.
Wow. I totally forgot about that.
Yeah, those catalogs, man.
Man, yeah.
Of course, you have franchises like Coconuts, Camelot, which became FYE. Camelot used to have a crazy bargain bin. And I know that certain labels would, and this is mainly CDs at the time, certain labels like Atlantic, they would put out new releases, but to prepare themselves for even further releases, they would put a lot of stuff in cutout. Atlantic was notorious for that. And I picked up a lot of stuff that is way out of print, because there was a time when out of print means we're gonna put a hole in it. It's gonna be we're gonna mark it down 50% or more. And when I talk about the hole, you're talking about a promo. So this is the promo copy. You have your copies that are labeled promos, but these are the cutout. Oh, they're more specifically, it's a cutout, meaning they're trying to get rid of it and they're going to get wholesale. Now these
what they called it was called the cutout bin. I mean, that's what we call it. Yeah.
And I'm talking, some amazing stuff used to be in these cutout bins that now fetches hundreds, if not thousands of dollars, because it was looked at
dude,
as a commercial film.
The cutout bin was, I guess if we can just sort of, fast forward into the CD, when CDs hit.
What's up?
Because CDs, man, were expensive.
Yeah.
So, right?
The player used to be about $500 when they first came out, not more.
So just the shock of like going from album, $7, $5, $7, whatever, to cassette, right, around the same price or whatever. CDs started at like 15
plus,
and going up from there. So you're like, man, but then when they introduced the cutout bin,
that's when my CD collection got bigger.
and like you said, man, the promote, and what it was the labels or the distributor or whoever would ship out these, what they would call promotional use. Remember, because they used to have for promotional use only,
not for sale. That's the first thing they put in for sale. But they couldn't sell it full price because they had that
couldn't sell it for,
that you couldn't be selling this.
So you could, so it was like $3, whatever, and man, the cutout bend used to go hard, dude.
Yeah,
It used to
yeah.
go real hard, man.
And I'll
So
get back to go back to probably my favorite store is
okay.
Big Al's was very welcoming. Al was the owner. His wife actually was a substitute teacher when I was in middle school. So I was like, wait a minute, that's and then he had a brother that was in there all the time, a sibling brother. And he would just sit there and say, he'd be on a stoop and he'd be like, just the person I wanted to see, guess what? We just got it. He introduced me to artists, like he said, he introduced me to the concept of just because they only had one hit doesn't mean they didn't have great material. Case in point, main ingredient. Everybody plays the fool. Happiness is around the bend. Outstanding catalog. So he said, do yourself a favor. Get this greatest hits. That's an easy entry. If you like what you hear, get more. These albums, their greatest hits. It was like 19 songs on the greatest hits. And it was amazing how many great songs. And I didn't even know about their first lead singer until I bought that, Don McPherson. Right. He passed away at 26 in 71 before, the major success, right before Everybody Plays the Fool. In fact, he had a song called Black Seeds Keep on Growing. That was his final song. In fact, the album Black Seeds on the back has a tribute to John McPherson.
Oh, okay.
And I've heard that this was Tupac's favorite song, of all time. In fact, on one of the documentaries, they played it prominently in there. Black Seeds Keep on Growing. And I love that song. I love the album cover. And then not too long into the opening of, there were a few other, they start hiring regular people as employees or, relatives, younger relatives. And then they started going into the hip hop. And there was a young man named Van in there. I say young man, he was my age, maybe a year or two older.
Right.
And he was the hip hop guy, but he knew I was coming in for the old school. When Roy Ayers in the early 90s, they started putting Everybody Loves the Sunshine, A Mystic Voyage, etc. The first one that came out was Everybody Loves the Sunshine, Mystic Voyage, etc. So I go in one day, pre-internet, so I don't know what's coming out and when. He was like, I got some I saved these for you, because he had actually given me a Roy Ayers cassette that somebody had returned. The Vibrations, which I've had as a cassette, as a CD, on vinyl. Don't have 8-track was never my thing. I probably would have got it on 8-track too. He gave me that tape and nothing was wrong with it. And that was my discovery of Roy Ayers. So when they started coming out on CD, he had saved the last copy for me. He pulled it from under the tape. From under the back. Of course, I bought it that day. He hit me to a lot of artists, the deeper appreciation of artists like Marvin Gaye.
Right.
Now, this gentleman actually disappeared from the store around 93. And he returned, not to the store, but to worldwide fame as Thrill the Player from the group 69 Boys. And I was in Philly watching the Jukebox Network, and I see a song called Tootsie Roll that comes on. I'm like, yo, that's the dude from Big Al's that used to hook me up with mad records. And goes to show, you never know what somebody knows. I know him as a cat that hit me to a lot of classic music.
Right.
The world knows him as he's just one of those Southern rappers that got a platinum. Everybody that's not from down south don't get our music. So, you get so much hate about things like that. And, so that was an interesting story about Big Al.
Man, incredible, man. Great story. And again, so you built a relationship with this guy, man.
And in fact, the last time I saw him, now I'm going to bring it to Atlanta, which I moved to it in 99. Last time I saw him was at a black-owned store called DVS Sounds in Riverdale, which is like part of my work commute. So I stop in there. If you want to talk about a store,
oh, that's the place you were telling me about that. I have not been able to get to over there, but you told me about this place.
If you want to talk about a store that gives you that feeling of a classic record store, more than any other store I've been into recently, I don't know. It maybe the guy that owns his name is Tobago. I think he was a DJ back in the day. Very down to earth cat. Nobody just walks into that store. And I think the other dude I know that works there, I think his name is Moochie or something like that. But I think they have other ventures, but they make sure they keep this store in its full integrity. You will not walk in that store and not be acknowledged, not be,
right,
how can I help you?
right.
We just got this in. We're
Wow.
anticipating getting more of these. They have CDs from labels. They still have brand new CDs from labels that have not put this stuff out in 20 plus years. I mean, like No Limit CDs still sealed, and Master P hasn't put out anything on No Limit prominently in decades. And so it gives you that whole, and they have every genre. I mean, it's a black-owned store. They have rock, they have jazz, they have R&B, they have the oldies, they have mixtapes like the reggae mix CDs, etc. They still have DVDs. They don't have the VHS though, and they don't have cassettes anymore. But other than that, it's just, I love going in there because it's such a reminder how record stores was so, they were so personable. You know,
and it was a part of the neighborhood, part of the community. Everybody knows everybody's name. You walk in, you know, just like you said, man. That's your weekly pilgrimages to go to.
Yeah.
You know, you might not even have any money. You just go and you just want to look around, see what is new, what came out. You know, and again, you might meet somebody in there that you know you click with. So you know those things, man. I have to get. I'm gonna try to get over there this week and and check them out, man.
And then closely connected to that, we've mentioned it in the first episode, JB's Records in West End,
of course,
in the historic West End. Right. That's another one that gives you that whole old school record store vibe.
I mean,
he has areas where the live band has plenty of room. A DJ, in fact, he's had turntable setups in there. It's really a lounge. It's a record lounge. People, they sit on the couch, they talk.
Got the couches, right? Got the chairs. Yeah.
Inventory is continuously being updated. Very personable experience in that. That's another one of the stores you're not going to walk in and not be acknowledged.
Right.
And DBS Sounds actually has been open, I believe, over 30 years. He has a lot of relationships, you know. And then one that's been around, I think it's about 20 years, in Little 5 Points, is another black owned, Daryl and Moods Music.
And Moods, right.
They started over across the street at the Bazaar. There's a little shop,
that's right. There.
Carpet laid out with some CDs. And now he has like a huge building across the street that has event space area. It has a consignment, crazy mixtapes, a lot of CDs. And he's actually getting ready to open a record store downtown called Vinyl. I'm ready for that. What's up, my old roommate Mark? What's happening? He was younger than me, and I used to expose him to a lot of the old school, and it used to get on his nerves. But I think he embraced some of it.
So Daryl's opening up a new place.
Yes, it's going to be in Midtown. It's going to be called Crates.
Okay.
So those are the three major African American owned record stores that I know of. Of course, there's others around town. I live in Marietta. For now, we had Waterloo Sunset in the Battery. That was like an department store size record store. They were there. They actually started around the corner, Spring Road, and then they moved into the Battery complex. That was a twice, 3 times a week stop for me. I picked up so many records during the pandemic when they opened back up from the Battery, and yeah, Sweet Melissa's also in Marietta Square. It's an antique shop, and that's where a lot of good records are too, at antique shops. But they have a huge record store in the back, you know, and they participate in Record Store Day. I like to go there after Record Store Day because I don't like to stand in lines and things like that. And Record Store Day it happens on around April, and then there's another one on like Black Friday, right after Thanksgiving, where they have exclusive releases that come out, reissues, um, previously unreleased stuff. So it's almost like a record holiday. So
Right.
twice a year we have record stores, many record stores participate in an event called Record Store Day, and the lines are crazy. I'm going to, when I get to go back to Little 5 Points, I'm gonna talk about stores there, and especially down there, that's where the lines are crazy. And but they put out some stuff I really want, but they'll put it out in limited, like 500 or 1,000. So you got to go get it before it sells out. But the Sweet
And,
Melissa gets all those titles, and they usually have them the day after Record Store Day. So I go there after Record Store Day, and they have a section for all their Record Store Day releases, so you don't have to dig through the rest of the inventory to find.
well, in your opinion, why do you think that vinyl collecting is still, because I mean, I guess it the CD age, it sort of tapered off. Everything was more about convenience, and then downloading just changed everything. But you still had people who were connected to their records and to and I'm sure that there's a certain part of just it's a part of their life, man, because you could spend just as you said, man, your collection is worth a lot of money. People spend a lot of money on collecting these things, but in today's times, I mean, it's 2024, so you can push a button and basically hear anything that you kind of want to hear. Why do you feel like it's still of importance to a number of people?
Okay. Now, when Napster and all the downloading came out, I actually was a fan of it. Not because I wanted free music, because a lot of the music wasn't free. I'm not talking about free as far as not priced. I'm talking about it was not free by the label. There was a lot of stuff that was unavailable, unattainable, unless you had some of the original copies. So Napster, for me, it filled in the gap of, I had the Tila Rock 12-inch. I don't have it anymore, and I can't find it. And somebody uploaded it on Napster. Now, when you're talking about digital, even some CDs, even some vinyl that is digitally remastered, you're talking about sound integrity. When you download something from Napster or it doesn't have, for me, and I know a lot of other ears feel the same way, it doesn't have the same listenable integrity that your records have, or even your cassettes have, or in many cases, especially stuff that was recorded in the late 80s and 90s, your CDs. They were digitally mastered. So, some stuff sounds worse on vinyl because it was recorded digitally. It's all of some of it is an aesthetics thing. I grew up in the generation we went to the library just as much as we went to anywhere else. That was our social gathering point. And that was one of the few things me and my brother could do because of our age difference. So we would walk with that library card. And of course, they had records and stuff and later videos and DVDs and CDs. But, just that whole opening a book, reading, and records give you that experience. I just opened up a few gatefolds. Now, I'm getting into a lot of, out of the country, like prog and krautrock rock, etc. So I'm not going to be able to get the originals albums like this, but then you have reissue companies. And this one was only 1,000 copies. And this is copy number 255. I got this, I believe, from Double Decker in Bethlehem, Pennsylvania. Went up to see my boy Sam All Jams, who you checked in earlier. And they've since closed. They actually closed a few months ago. But not just the artwork itself. You have gatefolds that have information, pictures in it. Now, I pulled this particular record off the shelf because this has a 44-page booklet that comes with it. And as somebody that loves to read about music as well as listen, this fills in so many gaps for this group for me.
Wow, that's incredible.
It has pictures of all the different variations of their album covers, because certain countries had different pressings.
Sick.
This has information, like label information, all the labels that they were on. It has biography information, etc. It has things like promo posters, like reproductions of those. You can't, I mean, you can get it online, but it's nothing like having it in your hand like a book.
Nothing like it.
And, you know, once you read and you have some studio session pictures that might not have ever appeared commercially before, that they got from the archives or got from the actual people who created the music. And when you look at these and you look at some of the people on there, you start to see people who are in other groups. You know, you have groups like Soft Machine, and you have Keith Tippett, who's been in like 10 other groups.
Right.
You know, and that's where the rabbit hole starts. That's where you start, okay, I'm reading a line of notes. Now I notice this person is on a lot of stuff I like, and he has some of his own stuff. Why am I not buying his stuff too? Or her stuff?
Man.
You know, so, you know, just that, for me, the experience, I still live in an apartment. I have to move in a few months. This is going to be back-breaking. But what I have to do is, like 2 months before I move, I'm up to 2 storage units now. I can keep everything in here, but now I need to be in the house. And that's the next step. And I get 2 storage units, sometimes on different sides of town, based on where I may be or where I work, or, you know, I might get one by my son's house. And I start putting stuff away. I keep my stuff in order. I label the boxes. I even store it in order. How it looks in my house is not going to be too much different on how it's going to look in my storage unit. I'm going to line the walls of the storage unit with these shelves and put the records back on the shelf, because sometimes if I'm in transition, I'm not going to have all my records in one place. Right. So I want to be able to go in that storage unit, pick out about 100, put them in one of my carrying cases, and take to wherever I'm at the time, you know. Right. And you know, so a lot of people, that's the reason they gave this up. They don't want to carry these back-breaking records. This is just a small portion of my rock section. I have Latin, I have every genre except for country. I put country in with rock.
I mean, it's a labor of love, man. It's a labor of love. It's just like when people see me carrying bringing a drum set in. I mean, obviously it's how I make my living, but there's still it's like there's got to be a labor of love there as well. You know,
the maintenance part of it. You know, turntables, you have to retain a good needle. You have to retain a good turntable. If it's a belt drive turntable, that belt's gonna pop eventually. With the direct drive turntable, they're gonna cost a little bit more. You don't have to buy Technique 1200s. You can still get a great turntable for about $200. If you're not a professional DJ that's scratching and mixing and things like that, all you need is a quality and durable turntable. You can get that in my last one, my current one that I still have. I've had other turntables after that, but I got rid of those because that's tried and true. I got that in 99, but there's some people who have their Technique 1200s from the early 80s. Their techniques are going to be almost 40 years old.
Man,
you may have to do 1 or 2 things as far as service. And talking about service, then I can go back to the record stores. Little 5 Points. There's a turntable lab in Little 5 Points. A lot of people don't know about it because it's behind Savage Pizza, and it's upstairs. They do repairs of turntables, and they have records in there too. It's a hip hop themed store, so they have spray paint and everything, like for graffiti artists, etc.
Wait a minute, wait. Upstairs from
so you know where Savage with Vortex,
right? If it's where the Vortex is, right there. Okay.
Literally, if you're coming out of Vortex, you make a left away from Moreland, and you start walking in the back area of the parking lot and make that right, look up. There's a mural there. There used to be, I think that's where MF Doom used to be. One of those dope murals is back there. But upstairs is a place called, it has an arrow that says Turntable Lab upstairs. It's a quaint area that they do a lot of repairs in there.
You know, man, I had no idea.
Yeah. and they have a lot of records in there too.
Okay.
It's hip hop themed, so they have a lot of hip hop 12 inches, but they do have like some rare stuff. When I come in there every once in a while, I'll see. That's where I the only copy of Mtume before Juicy Fruit, before he what's that song? You, Me and She, You, Me and He, what we gonna do? Before all of that, you know, his dad is which one of the Heath brothers is his dad? One of the Heath brothers is his dad. Jimmy Heath is his biological dad. Then his stepdad is actually a jazz artist too, but he actually was a jazz percussionist. He played with Miles. Played with Miles Davis before, when he went to Japan before he retired, and then they went on to have these monster R&B careers. But Mtume has 2 albums that are so elusive. One is called The Rebirth Cycle. I was fortunate that one of my Facebook friends sent me all the files for that. I never see that record. They had a reissue. Even if the reissue showed up, it's going to be a couple of $100. But he has an album called Akibulan, Land of the Blacks. Wait a minute. Hold on. I think I can put my hand on it right quick.
I've seen that record.
So they had it. They had an original copy. It was beat up, and it was still over $100. But I, of course, settled for a reissue. Well, maybe you know what? I might have filed that. I might have filed that in my R&B because his R&B career was so extensive. Because I'm over my jazz. Some of my jazz is over there. But they had that album in it, and I about lost my mind. Of course, I wasn't gonna pay $100. I mean, I will pay $100 for that particular. A certain type of album, but on a normal.
What have you paid $100 for?
At this point, I would have paid $100 for them too, but I found a reissue. But the reissue is good enough for me.
Right. But I'm asking you, what have you paid $100 for? Give it up, man. I want to know. Give it up.
I've been in like that 70 range.
Okay. You haven't gone that far.
Something offhand that I really paid for one record $100 for.
Okay. But what's the most you've ever paid for a record?
Well, I just ordered a record that was shipping and everything was $70-something. Beat Lab. I'm sorry. It's Beat Lab. Thank you, Mark. It's Beat Lab, not Turntable Lab. I'm thinking of a whole different online store. Beat Lab. Thank you for the correction. I just ordered a guy named Keith Tippett. He's jazz, progressive rock artist, but his records are impossible to find domestically because he's out of the UK. His imports don't show up a lot, but this particular record, they made a reissue of it, but they only made like less than 1,000 copies of it. So he had an album, a project called Centipede, September Energy, that just blew my mind. And I would have paid $100 for that. Luckily, the friend that I got it from didn't know how much he knew I wanted that record. But he didn't know how bad I wanted that record. When he played a certain portion of this record, it blew my mind. And that wasn't, because he was selling some records to me. That wasn't a part of the bargain. But he dropped that needle on that. I'm like, I need that one too. Let's talk. And he didn't hit me over the head too bad, but the music is so amazing on that album. Any combination of the musicians that are on that, I'll pay top dollar for.
Okay, so
because especially when you know it's elusive, you're not going to find it.
Well, that's what I was going to say. Is if it's rare, if it's if there has to be like some mystical, mystical things about it, because and we'll go back to the local record store in a minute. I got a couple comments I want to put up, but one album that I'm looking for is the Madhouse 8, right?
The black and white one? Oh, no. Yeah, I know. Because there was another group on Today Records called Madhouse.
Right.
Actually had
which is Prince's Jazz, the Prince's Jazz group, right?
Mm-hmm,
There's Madhouse 8, 16, and there is a 24.
24, yeah. But I don't think it was commercially released. It was. I've only known that.
No, it's not. Yeah, it's never. It's. I think the tracks they're tracks from it.
Yeah.
I belong to a couple of Prince groups.
Mm-hmm.
And I've seen, I don't know if it's real, if it's falsified cover, people putting cover, like cover,
Yeah, I've seen
whatever.
the 24 cover.
But 8 and 16, 8 is the hard one to find.
I got that one on CD, and I
yeah, that's, and I actually, when I went to JB's, he said he's maybe had it once, maybe,
yeah.
but that's a difficult one to find. So how much would I pay for that record? I don't know. I hadn't really thought about it. But because I don't think I ever owned, I had the 12, the 12 inches. I don't think I ever owned that one on vinyl. I had the cassette, and I had the CD. But yeah, if it's something like that you've been looking for, that is hard to find, it has immense, some real serious, like, sentimental value, to you, because then it's just like anything else. You might not even play the thing. You might not even open it.
Terrence, what's up,
you
Mary?
know so there's a comment I want to get to. Mark Podhorzer, who's hanging out with us tonight, he's had a couple of other good comments. He says, we talk about local record shops wherever you're from, where you grew up. This is one in Brooklyn. Says there was a discount department store called EJ Corvette. Wow. They had the largest record selection and the best.
I've seen that name.
So
I've seen that name before. I probably have the records with some stickers on it.
Dude, I mean, sometimes the best record store, I mean, we talk about record, but the department stores,
yeah,
like the discount play, like, because back then it's like everybody had a record
section.
Had a record section. Everybody had a record section.
Montgomery Ward's had
Montgomery Ward, Steers.
I have like a Spinners album from Montgomery Ward's.
Matter of fact, I mean, I can remember times where it was like, maybe I was with my mom or my parents or something like that. They could leave me in the record section because they know I wasn't going anywhere.
Right.
Like, I'm going to look at records. Okay, we'll come back in, 30 minutes or whatever, So
y'all done already?
Exactly. But yeah, man, that was just a way of life, dude. I mean, Kmart, Kmart was before Walmart. Kmart, I used to bought a lot of records out of there, a lot of 45s out of there.
Popcorn smell. That's about one of the lasting memories of Kmart. We walk in it, the popcorn smell just hits you.
Popcorn smell, man, right in the front.
Yeah,
and they also had a cafeteria at Kmart.
They did. We had a local store in Jacksonville called Pick and Save. I was surprised because by the time I started buying records, Pick and Saves were pretty much done. I found records with Pick and Save stickers on them, and they had a cafeteria too. They were known for their cafeteria.
Yep. So but yeah, man. We'll go ahead and wrap it up here. We could again.
Okay, let me shout out a few more. Wax and Facts, 50 years old, price to sell. You're gonna find something in it no matter what your taste is. World music, anything.
I bought many a thing from Wax and Facts, bro. Many
$17 last week in there. Got 3 records.
Matter of fact, I got one of the cool things that I found. I think I told you this story is I found a cassette before they had re-released Marvin Gaye's "Here, My Dear." That was hard to find, dude.
The cassette version, yeah.
I had never actually, quite as because I had heard about that record. I had never personally. This is like 90, maybe 97, 98, something like that. Mm-hmm. And I'd only heard about that record. I had never, because I was, I had everything else. I mean, and I Want You was still, one of my all-time favorites.
And Thrill from the 69 Boys, he hit me to that. He was like, so believe it or not, this is one of the most sonically perfect albums, and I've owned that album more than
it's up. Yeah, I Want You, Asia. Like, there's albums that just, man, it's like everything is perfect, right?
Yeah.
But I'd heard about Hear My, I'd never heard it. I knew it was about his divorce, blah, 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 blah. And so I was talking to my man that we all know in Wax. In fact, I haven't been there in so long, but I bet you
yeah, that's still everybody's still there. Everybody
wear the glass, the black rim glasses. He was the coolest dude. I used to know his name and everything, man. But we were just having a conversation, and it's like, man, I said, this record I heard Marvin Gaye did called "Here My Dear" that I've never been able to find. And you could just see him just like, oh,
that one.
Hang on a second. He's like, click. It's like, got a cassette, a used one that came in. Somebody traded it in.
Nice timing.
And he's like, man, he said, you don't see this very often. So
yeah,
I got it. It was like $5 or something like that. I can't remember what I paid for it.
I actually got that, of course, one of my mom's favorite cousins. He gave me some records, and that was one of the ones. That and Band of Gypsies was in that collection.
Yeah. Right, of course. I mean, another just genius. But I don't have Hear My Dear is one that I don't have on. So I got the CD. It quickly became my wife's favorite record for a long time. We listened. We were on a couple of road trips, man, and that's all we listened to was Hear My Dear. Just that
Sparrow. You can leave, but it's gonna cost you.
Unbelievable, man. Anger. I mean, just like the whole whatever, man. But I do not have that on vinyl.
I've owned 2 copies. The original one I had, and I found it in a dollar bin. Ironically,
you found Hear My Dear
maybe within the last 5 years. Yeah.
Wow. Okay. Well, if you see one, snatch it up for me. But
most definitely.
Yeah, man. So, those things like that. I mean, Wax and Facts, Wuxtery.
And it's here in Decatur, and it's the bigger store in Athens.
Right?
UGA.
What's the other one that you shot at? There was another.
Ella Guru, which is
Ella Guru. Somebody else mentioned that one today too. Ella Guru.
That's in Decatur as well. Then you have Book Nook, that's literally right up the street from Ruck Street. It's like right in between Ella Guru and Ruck Street. Right. You have a couple of Book Nook locations left. We had one in Marietta, but they recently closed. I bought a lot of good records out of Book Nook.
So the spot that I was telling you about in Rockford called Toad Hall.
Yeah.
That puts you in the mind of
Book Nook. Yeah. I had a crazy haul in Book Nook one time, and they had like all the albums that were called premium albums, $20 or more. It was buy 4, get 1 free. And I got some David Axelrods out of there that you never see in the stores. But I left an album called LeClave. I don't know and you talk about mistakes and digging stuff. It was only $19. That LeClave is not a $19 album. That's all I'm going to say. I left it because I had bought so much from the Goodwill right up the street. I said, I'm going to leave this and I'm going to come another day. I came back. After I realized my mistake, I tried to go back the next day. It was gone.
Wow.
Just that fact. It was that moment that those records must have just dropped. And I grabbed pretty much all the good. I grabbed the silvers when the silvers were on Prime. Those albums are not cheap. So I grabbed Silvers 3 for like $5. You never find that album that cheap. And it was a lot. I did a video on Facebook years ago about it. I got to revisit it so I can remember all.
Yeah. I mean, that's one thing, the cool thing that you do. Like I said, friend Lamar up because he I think almost daily. I mean, definitely often. I don't want to say daily, but
yeah, I slowed down because school year can start getting crazy.
I'm coming back. You post a record. You and Greg Kaz, man, are two of my favorite cats that I've learned so much from, just from y'all stuff, just the stuff y'all will post, and then going and checking it out and seeing, or things I've forgotten about or, etc. So hopefully we're going to get Greg on the show at some point. I'm going to bug him. I'm going to bug him until he wears down.
We need to double up. I'll hit him up too. Cause that's
bug him.
A talented DJ, amazing knowledge on records.
Amazing
person.
Yeah, because amazing.
I'm going to be candid with you. Doing what I do, you meet some people that are real cool. but you meet some people that are some real jerks. I'm gonna keep it G-rated.
I mean, it's the
elitist
same in my
part to this thing.
industry. Same in
Yeah,
my
you
industry,
know, I
man.
know you know. I know you.
And it just, it's all, it comes in all forms, man.
Yeah.
It comes in all forms. All right, man, let's wrap it up. So any other stories you want to shout out? I think
just thinking locally, it's so many. I'm gonna be upset that some that no longer exist. One, Full Moon Records. Full Moon
Records, dude.
That's where this cloth argument came from for in the dollar bill, coincidentally.
Yes.
Man, that store, I discovered it late. I literally discovered it right before it closed. But they had like their regular inventory. You walked up these steps and they had their dollar bin like in this elevated space. It was real tight.
Full Moon Records, man.
You had to touch every record in there because you never know what you're gonna find in that dollar.
Man, completely forgot about that spot.
I missed that store. What's some other spots that have closed? It was a spot in Tucker. I think the guy that ran it was like a son or something of the people who founded Turtles. We used to have like the S&H green stamps. You had the turtle stamps. You have a booklet. You save up enough stamps. You trade it in. You get like a free record or something like that. I forgot the name of that store. They used to be at the record shows and everything. I haven't seen anything. I have some records with a sticker on it. And another store that closed. Stores that I heard about, Red Beans and Rice in West End. That predated my time here. Peppermint Music was a store that was like in a lot of the black malls, like West End Mall, South DeKalb Mall. They used to have a nice little cutout bin there. I'll save the out of state ones for another day. But
sure.
Of another store that was very prominent that's no longer here. It'll come up in another episode.
Sounds good.
Yeah, so
sounds good. All right, everybody. Well, thank you so much. I would shout everybody out in the chat. We had a nice little chat going on.
Yes.
A lot of people coming in the comments. I appreciate Lamar bringing in so much fresh blood to the show and to the energy to the show and bringing new people, man. And hopefully you dig what we're doing.
Yes.
We want to kind of continue getting into. We're going to actually James Ellison, our brother. We have got to get you because James is one of the astute DJs over at WRFG. So you can check that station out online, WRFG. If you're not in Atlanta, if you are in Atlanta, it is 89.3, I believe.
So much stuff.
Could be wrong.
That lower end of the dial.
I think it's 89.3. If I'm correct, James, let me know. If I'm not, let me know. But I think it's 89.3. But they are located in Little Five Points.
Yeah. Follow him for the playlist. You want to know about some great classic and contemporary?
Listen, let's get James on. Let's try to get James on for the next show. So James, so he says yes, 89.3 is the correct dial location for RFG. But if we can't do it the next show, James, I'm gonna send you a message and let's try to coordinate some schedules and get you on for an episode of this, and we can talk about some great jazz history and jazz records.
We were building when that Lee Morgan movie was screening before it came out commercial flicks or on DVD, which I own the DVD. We were talking about the screening. So I think we had just missed. I think it was somewhere like Georgia State or something, like we had just missed each other with the screening. So it would definitely be a pleasure to build with him.
Yeah, man, absolutely. So, but shout out to Mark, Adina, Marlon. I'm gonna try to get everybody in here that was in the chat. Mark, Tommy, Samuel, Carlos,
got Kenny, my boy John,
Shock, Steve, Big Time Reactions, Melissa. If you guys are still with us, John,
Lisa.
Taylor.
Hey, Lisa.
Frank. So, man, we appreciate you guys hanging out with us, man. And
some of these people I've had hours of music conversations with.
Well, hey,
we
have to start. We'll have to do some stuff, man, where we're bringing in some folks from the chat, man, and we'll talk to them about, we'll find stuff and just see what everybody's listening to, what's the latest things they've gotten or what they have in their collection and all that kind of good stuff, man. So I think the amount of things that can happen is infinite here. So that's cool, man. So check us out. Our regular show is on Tuesday nights called Chop It Up Tuesday. Myself and Tyrone Jackson, where we talk all things working musician. We also try to have some fun, do some humor stuff. But we've got a great cat that's producing the show now. So we've got some segments. And this show is in its infant stages, but as you can see, we're almost at 2 hours, man. It goes fast. It goes fast. Yeah. So thank you. We're on this journey and we really appreciate everybody that's coming along with us and helping us grow. Like I said, eventually the Facebook thing, because it gets kind of weird sometimes with Facebook. So we are going to be exclusively on YouTube. So you have to go to the YouTube channel to check us out. So, and that's going to probably happen here in the next couple of months. So subscribe to the YouTube and set your notification bell so that you know when we are doing a live show. You can follow us on Facebook, Instagram. We also try to do some stuff on Twitch too. We haven't really messed around. We're on Twitch, but we don't really have an audience on Twitch because Twitch is mostly video games, but they have some other categories where people, do other things, and it's a cool platform. You just kind of got to we have to experiment with that and check it out a little bit more. But you can follow us on Instagram, all that good stuff I already said. Yeah, man, we enjoyed being with you guys tonight. I
want to bring up an important thing too, not to interrupt. Okay. We don't play copyrighted music, not because we don't want to, but it'll mute out if for the replay.
Do it.
So that's the only reason why we're not playing music live. I would love to play some of these songs, at least a section, right. But because of the
what we might could do, we'll just have to experiment with it because some things will get through, but it depends. It's like I said, if it's something that's like off the beaten path, so to speak, you can kind of get away with it.
I've tried it. Trust me.
It's still tough because again, going back to our brother Greg Kaz, he will still post it, but he's very specific about what he'll post because he knows, like, okay, there's no record of this of this, so the algorithm is going to let it through. The algorithm is just is what it is, man. I mean, we're going to use this platform to the best of our ability, but there's only so much that you can do. So even the king of all of this YouTube stuff is Rick Beato, and he has bitched many times about, because ultimately what we want to do, all we're doing is educating. We're not using the music for
commercial
money. Mm-hmm. And actually, when you play somebody else's music, what does that do? It brings attention to the artist, not us.
Right.
We're trying to shine a spotlight on the artist and their work. It has nothing to do with us we're not making any money off of that. So it's just a weird thing, but it is what it is, Yeah. So anyway, y'all, thank you so much for tuning in to this episode of Deep Vinyl. We will see you guys on the next go round.
All right. Peace and blessings, everybody. See you soon.